What's up, beautiful people? It's your boy Joshua Martin, and this is my Gh5 Shoulder Rig review. I'll be sharing with you some of the items that I'm using for my rig, and as well as talking about the reasons why I want to go this direction with the shoulder rig and the Gh5. Now, personally, the Gh5 is a relevant camera in 2019, even with all the camera manufacturers coming out with new cameras almost every 3 to 6 months, really. As of lately, I've been really getting into lifestyle / narrative work and documentary work. The two main components I'm looking to focus on more is narrative and documentary. For this particular setup, I am focusing around one type of lens, which is the Gh5 Anamorphic 50mm lens. So the first item I thought about was the power, how I'm going to deliver power to all the camera, the mic, whatever. So I did some research and I came across the Core SWX power base. Now, the reason why I picked this up because it has quite a few features for a battery. Now, it's only 48 watt hours, but it has a threaded mount, it has 2 USB ports, and it has 2 D taps. So essentially, I can connect my Inferno, Gh5, and a Zoom all in one battery pack, and that will give me a roughly about just under 2 hours of recording time. So I think that was a plus. I just wish it was a bigger battery, but the features that it has is great. And what I do, I just screw on my mic, the Zoom H5 that is, right on top of the battery itself, and I can control everything from there. So what really makes this work is having long enough 15mm rod. So I had 18 inches laying around, and so that was perfect for the entire rig. That fit the length of the lens all the way back to the support for the battery. So after putting on the support lens, I already had a solution for my follow focus. So now I just had to figure out how to see, obviously, because the camera is too far back. And so I had a Red Rock Micro, and it was from my older shoulder rig, but it had a left extended 15mm rod. So I bought a small rig cage for my Inferno, which had NATO rails all around, and I bought a NATO to 15mm attachment, and so that's how I decided to attach my shotgun. So it's sitting right in front of me, which is kind of perfect. I didn't want to have an offset rig. I just wanted to be able to have the screen in front of me. Lastly, to the shoulder mount itself and the handles. Now, I did some research and I decided to say that small rig, they really do produce some high quality pieces of gear that you might be looking for. So I picked up the shoulder rig, the VCT mount. I didn't get the actual plate to go into the tripod. I'm gonna get that at a later time, but this is the shoulder mount itself. But let me just pause because I do have a lot of small rig parts and they are no means sponsoring this video at all. I just think they just make really high quality pieces of gear that you just didn't think about that you actually need. And so yeah, I'm just going to just leave that there. Back to the shoulder rig, the plate itself is smaller than I thought. I thought it was going to extend to the back a little bit more, but it is pretty comfortable even with my bony shoulder. And having the extra weight does help, and I'll get to the weight a little bit later. I bought the wooden handles from Counterweight on Amazon. They had a bundle of the extended arms with the 2 left and right handles for about $200. Now compare that to small rigs handles. They're about $100 a piece just for the handles. The handles are okay. I have big hands, so they do feel a bit small in my hands because my ring finger and my middle finger can actually touch the metal portion. But I mean, if I just kind of slip out a little bit and then kind of get a good grip that way, it works. I will change them out later on. Now, balancing this rig was quite interesting. The combination of the lens and Inferno does shift the weight towards the front, but I will be adding a counterweight just to fix that, just to get a little bit more balance. Or I can just add a smaller monitor, like a 5-inch screen from Atomos, the Ninja, or the Shinobi. That I think will help the entire rig. Yeah, with the follow focus, it's on the right side, obviously for obvious reasons, because the monitor's on the left side. That's how I can see. I went with my older follow focus from Red Rocket. Again, like I said, these are older parts rather than the Edelchrome, because the Rocket actually secures itself to both of the 15mm rods, so it feels more secure that way and it doesn't have any give. So some of you might be wondering, why get a shoulder rig when the Gh5 has amazing in-body stabilization? A couple of things that matter to me Yes, the Gh5 does have amazing in-body stabilization, but I don't use it all the time. I tend to turn it off when I want particular handheld looks. I wanted to stabilize the anamorphic lens, and I wanted to have a little bit more weight with this camera. It's a small camera, and if you were to talk to any cinematographer, especially dealing with Hollywood films, the bigger the camera, the more stable you can get, but still have some natural imperfections in the shot to aid to whatever your look you're going for. So really, this is me trying to replicate particular shots that I see in films that I really enjoy. When using the Gh5 on this shoulder rig with the anamorphic lens, I will turn off the IBS because I don't want the sensor to be jittery, to be warping. And as you can see with these tests here, you'll notice that some of these shots with the IBIS on, they don't look really pleasing. But in other cases, it can aid. So it's really a risk. It's 50-50 really when you have the IBS on with the shoulder rig. So that's my take on it. And if you have another take, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Overall, the weight of this whole rig is about 15 pounds. It weighs more than the FS7 with a 24-70mm lens. And like I said, it feels good. It feels like it's not going to move. It's not going to get thrown off as fast, and depends how strong you are as well. Surprisingly, having a shorter arm gives me a little bit tighter to my body, so I can keep it a little bit more stable if I'm trying to have a lockdown, but still some nice breathing shots. So that's kind of a plus. Like I mentioned earlier, that this rig is for narrative and doc filmmaking. To some extent, I think my narrative work is going to benefit this more when just using this type of rig. Reason being that it is quite difficult to be nimble with this rig. So having a lot of setup and a lot of thought into how you want your shots will benefit more for narrative than it would doc work. Doc work, I just had to hit record and hope everything, I'll set everything up, but then if anything changes, I had to kind of just deal with it. That's what the nature of doc is if you're following somebody. So it's something to keep in mind, especially for my work that I want to do. And if you are kind of in the same predicament, if you're going to build something like this, just be aware that one style will benefit better than the other. I hope that gave some insight to why I went this direction. So feel free to ask any questions. Stay tuned for more content, especially completed films that I'll be uploading soon. Until then, peace.